Have you ever stopped to look around your room? Take a moment. Look at the chair you are sitting in. Look at the clock on the wall, or perhaps the door to your kitchen. My friends, we live in a world of shapes. But there is one shape that changed everything for us. It is the circle. Specifically, it is the wheel. Think about your morning today. Did you ride a bicycle? Did you take a bus or a car? Even if you stayed home, the wheel was there. It is in the tiny gears of your watch. It is in the hard drive of your computer. It is even in the machines that made the clothes you are wearing right now. The wheel is so common that we almost never see it. It is like the air we breathe. We use it every second, but we forget how powerful it truly is. Imagine for a second if every wheel in the world disappeared. The cars would stop in the middle of the road. The factories would go silent. The world would become a very quiet, very still place. In this story, I want to take you back in time. I want us to look at this simple object with new eyes. Because the history of the wheel is actually the history of us. It is a story of how humans learned to move faster than their legs could carry them. It is a story of how we learned to carry weights that were too heavy for our backs. It is a story of a revolution that never stopped spinning. So sit back and get comfortable. Let's talk about the greatest invention in human history. Let's talk about the circle that moved the world. Are you ready to begin our journey? Let's go back to the very beginning. Imagine a world where everything is heavy. Imagine a world where the only way to move something is to pull it or carry it. This was the life of our ancestors for thousands and thousands of years. Before the wheel, the world was a very small place. If you wanted to go to the next village, you had to walk. If you wanted to move a large stone to build a house, you needed many people. People were strong, of course. They used their muscles and their bones to do everything. But our bodies have limits. When they had to move something very heavy, they used sledges. A sledge is like a large wooden plate that you pull across the ground. Can you imagine how hard that was? The wood would rub against the dirt and the rocks. The friction would make it very difficult to move. It was slow, painful work that left people exhausted at the end of the day. Sometimes they were clever. They would put round logs of wood under the heavy objects. As they pulled the object, the logs would roll. This was better, but it was still hard. Once the object rolled over a log, the log was left behind. Someone had to pick it up, run to the front, and put it down again. It was a constant cycle of lifting and running. It was a life of sweat and heavy breathing. The horizon felt very far away back then. Travel was only for the brave. Trade was only for things you could carry on your back or on a donkey. Life was local. Life was slow. But humans are thinkers. We look at a problem and we search for a better way. We looked at those rolling logs and we had an idea. What if the rolling part stayed with the heavy object? What if the log didn't have to be moved by hand every time? That thought was the beginning of a miracle. About 5,500 years ago, in a place called Mesopotamia, something amazing happened. This area is now part of Iraq. The people there, the Sumerians, were very smart. But here is a surprise for you. The first wheel was not used for a car or a cart. Can you guess what it was for? It was for making art. It was a potter's wheel. Potters needed a way to turn clay quickly to make beautiful bowls and jars. They took a round piece of wood and put it on a stick, or an axle. By spinning the wood, they could shape the clay with their hands. It was a moment of pure creativity. But then, someone had a brilliant aha moment. They looked at that spinning wheel and thought of the heavy sledges in the fields. What if, they wondered, we put this wheel on its side? They took two wheels and connected them with a strong wooden stick. They attached this to a platform. And just like that, the first cart was born. Think about how that felt. Suddenly, a job that took 10 men now only took 1. The friction that made the ground feel like glue was gone. The wheel didn't just move things, it carried the weight. The ground was no longer an enemy to be fought. It was a path to be traveled. At first, these wheels were solid. They were just heavy circles of wood cut from tree trunks. They were bumpy and they broke easily. But they worked. They changed how we saw distance. The next village didn't seem so far away anymore. The invention of the wheel in Mesopotamia wasn't just a technical step. It was a change in the human spirit. We realized we could make tools to make our lives easier. The wheel started to spin, and it hasn't stopped since. It began with a simple pot of clay, but soon it would move entire armies. As time went on, the wheel became faster. Humans realized that a solid piece of wood was very heavy. To go fast, they needed something lighter. Around 2000 BC, people invented spokes. Instead of a solid circle, they made a wheel with a rim and thin wooden bars in the middle. Think of a bicycle wheel today. That is the same idea. These new wheels were light and strong, and with light wheels, you could have speed. This led to the creation of the chariot. Imagine the sound of 2 horses running at full speed. Behind them is a small wooden carriage on 2 spoked wheels. It roars across the sand like a storm. The chariot changed everything about power. Kings and queens used them to show how important they were. If you had a chariot, you were a person of high status. In ancient Egypt and Greece, the chariot was the ultimate machine. In war, it was terrifying. Soldiers could move across a battlefield faster than anyone could run. It was the supercar of the ancient world. But it wasn't just about fighting. It was about the feeling of the wind in your hair. For the first time, humans felt the thrill of speed. We were no longer limited by how fast our legs could move. The wheel gave us the power of the horse. This changed how empires were built. Leaders could travel to the edges of their lands more quickly. They could send messages and keep control. But the wheel wasn't only for the rich and the powerful. While the kings were racing in their chariots, something else was happening. The wheel was going to work for the common man. It was moving from the battlefield to the farm. And that is where the real magic began to happen for everyday people. While the chariots were symbols of war, the wooden cart was a symbol of life. For a farmer, the wheel was a gift from the gods. Think about the life of a farmer long ago. Every day was a struggle against the weight of the harvest. They had to move heavy bags of grain, piles of hay, and large stones. Before the wheel, this work broke a man's back. But with a simple cart, a farmer could move 10 times more. He could take his vegetables to a market that was miles away. This meant he could earn more money and feed more people. The wheel also helped us build the giant things we see today. Think of the great cathedrals or the tall stone walls of ancient cities. How did they move those massive stones? They used pulleys, which are just wheels with ropes. They used cranes that were powered by people walking inside a giant wheel. The wheel allowed us to lift things toward the sky. And then there was the water wheel. People put wheels in rivers. The moving water turned the wheel, and the wheel turned a stone to grind wheat into flour. This was the first time we used nature to do our work for us. We didn't need muscles. We needed the river and the wheel. It was the first engine. Imagine the relief a community felt when they got a water mill. The work that took all day now took an hour. The wheel was giving people time. Time to rest. Time to think. Time to grow. The wheel became the heartbeat of the village. It was there in the fields, in the mills, and on the roads. It was a humble worker, always turning, always helping. It didn't ask for much, just a little grease or oil. And as it turned, it pushed human civilization forward. The wheel was making the world a more productive place. But to truly change the world, the wheel needed a way to travel far. It needed a road. Have you heard the saying, "All roads lead to Rome"? There's a reason for that. The Romans understood something very important. A wheel is only as good as the ground underneath it. If the ground is muddy or full of rocks, the wheel gets stuck. So, the Romans became the greatest road builders in history. They built thousands of miles of straight, flat stone roads. Why? Because of the wheel. They wanted their carts and their carriages to move smoothly. These roads were like the internet of the ancient world. They connected different countries and different cultures. On these roads, the wheel carried more than just goods. It carried stories. It carried languages. It carried new ideas. A merchant from one side of the world could meet a buyer from the other side. They would trade silk, spices, and salt. The wheel made the world feel smaller. People began to realize that they weren't alone in the world. There were other people with different ways of living. Think about a traveler on a Roman road. The rhythmic sound of the wheels on the stone. Clack, 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 clack. It was the sound of progress. This trade made cities grow. When wheels can move easily, business can grow. When business grows, people have more food and better homes. The wheel was the bridge between nations. It allowed us to share what we had and learn what we didn't know. It was a tool for peace as much as it was a tool for work. Even after the Roman Empire fell, the roads remained. The wheels kept turning on them for hundreds of years. But the wheel was about to go through another massive change. It was about to leave the dirt roads and enter the factory. It was about to become the engine of a new age. As we move into the 1700s and 1800s, the wheel changed its shape again. It didn't just stay on the bottom of carts. It moved inside machines. This was the Industrial Revolution. The wheel became a gear. A gear is a wheel with teeth. When one gear turns, it pushes another gear. Suddenly, wheels were talking to each other. They were working together to create power. Think of a massive steam engine. The steam pushes a rod, which turns a giant iron wheel. That wheel turns many smaller wheels. These wheels powered the factories that made our clothes, our tools, and our paper. The wheel was no longer just about moving from place to place. It was about manufacturing. Then came the locomotive, the train. Large iron wheels on iron tracks. The train could carry thousands of people and tons of coal. It moved faster than any horse could ever run. The wheel was now the industrial heartbeat. Cities were built around the sound of these turning wheels. Imagine the excitement of the first people to ride a train. The world outside the window was a blur. The wheel had conquered distance once and for all. Everything in the modern world started here. The watches in our pockets, the engines in our boats, the machines in our shops. They all used the simple logic of the spinning circle. The wheel became more complex, but its heart was still the same. It was still about reducing effort. It was still about making life easier for us. But the story doesn't end in the factory. The wheel was about to become personal. It was about to give every individual the freedom to move. In the 20th century, the wheel became our best friend. The invention of the automobile changed the shape of our cities. Suddenly, every family wanted their own set of 4 wheels. Think about the freedom a car gives you. You can go anywhere, anytime. You are the master of your own journey. The wheels on our cars today are marvels of technology. They are made of rubber and air, designed to be quiet and safe. They carry us to work, to school, and to see our families. But look beyond the car. Look at the bicycle, 2 wheels and a simple chain. It is one of the most efficient machines ever made. It uses the power of your own legs and turns it into incredible distance. The bicycle is a perfect example of the wheel's simple beauty. And the wheel didn't stop on Earth. When we went to the moon, we took wheels with us. The lunar rover had special wheels to drive on the dusty moon surface. Today, on Mars, there are robots called rovers. They have 6 wheels. Those wheels are rolling across the red sand of another planet right now. Think about that for a moment. A shape that we invented 5,000 years ago to make pots is now exploring the stars. The wheel is our ambassador to the universe. It is in the turbines of jet engines that fly us across oceans. It is in the tiny fans that keep your computer from getting too hot. It is everywhere. From the dirt of Mesopotamia to the craters of Mars, the wheel has been with us every step of the way. It is a modern marvel that we often take for granted. But as we look to the future, what happens to the wheel? Does it ever stop? We have traveled a long way together, haven't we? From the heavy sledges of the past to the robots on Mars. It is a long history for such a simple shape. But the wheel is more than just a tool. It is a symbol. It represents the circle of life. It represents how things come back around. It represents progress that never ends. Every time a wheel turns, we are moving towards something new. Think about the people who first made that potter's wheel. They could never have imagined a car or an airplane. They only knew they wanted to make a better pot. But that is the beauty of human invention. One small idea grows and grows until it changes the entire world. The wheel is a reminder that we are all connected by our creativity. As you go about your day today, I want you to do something. I want you to spot the wheel. Look for it in the street, in your office, and in your home. When you see one, give it a little smile. Remember the sweat of the ancient farmers. Remember the roar of the Roman chariots. Remember that this simple circle is the reason you can eat food from far away. It is the reason you can visit your friends in another city. It is the silent, powerful engine of our civilization. The wheel taught us that we don't have to carry the weight of the world alone. We can build things to help us. We can find ways to make the journey smoother. So, my friends, keep your own wheels turning. Keep learning, keep moving, and keep looking at the world with wonder. Because as long as the wheel is spinning, our story is still being written. What will we invent next? Where will the wheel take us in the next 1,000 years? I don't know the answer, but I do know one thing. It will be an amazing ride. Thank you for sharing this story with me.